Assalamu alaikum, family. You're tuned into the Sajdah channel. This is the Sajdah Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business. Grab your coffee, be a friend, tell a friend. We're going to do a prayer, a beautiful prayer, and then we're going to come back and dive into our conversation. This morning, during my meditation, there was a statement from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that just kept flashing. Big fields await the wide awake man and woman to work out in. Just kept flashing. So let's talk about it. All right. Again, be a friend, tell a friend. I'll be right back. About a minute.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided Thee right, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who in my judgment is the master historian, taught us that of all our studies, history is the most attractive, and it is best qualified to reward the researcher. History is most attractive. Why should history be most attractive? Because history is the recorded time of the human family in its struggle to overcome obstacles. There is no life that is without struggle. The Holy Quran teaches us that man, meaning man and woman, is made to face difficulties. And after difficulty comes ease. But it is history that guides us through difficulty. For if you know how people who had difficulty yesterday got through, and if your difficulty is somewhat similar, then today we also can get through if we follow the guidance of history. This is why Carter G. Woodson and many of our black giants fought for black people to know our history. Because in not knowing our history, we don't have a guide. And without a guide, we are lost. No wonder the Bible.
Assalamu alaikum, family. Welcome to the Sajdah channel. Assalamu alaikum simply means peace be unto you. For those of you who don't know, I mentioned in the quick intro that this morning during my meditation, I was getting a word, which is a quote of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that says, I'm going to put that up here. I think I wrote it down. Big fields await the wide awake man and woman to work out in. And just kept flashing. You know, sometimes, a lot of times when I meditate, most times when I meditate, I'm not meditating for an intention. I say most because there are times where I will meditate, like to settle myself or to kind of, refocus or something like that. But most times I'm meditating just to just sit and be still with no intention. And so this morning, just like any other, um, I was doing that. And this quote just kept flashing in my mind. Big fields await the wide awake man and woman to work out in. And I just said, that's so interesting because here we are facing a new calendar year, praying for peace and abundance and safety and security in this, wild space, this wilderness that we're living in. But yet, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, big fields await the wide awake man and woman to work out in. When the wilderness gets wild and gets turned up, it's so easy for us to just kind of retreat, got to get to a safe space. But he's saying big fields await. And I started thinking about when I was just in Georgia and I went to Macon and Cordell and Sandersville, tracing the footsteps of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for, research that I'm doing. And remember, I was just thinking about the fields, miles and miles of field. And if you have big fields, you can produce a lot. See, I think that is a nod to our productivity, a nod to us doing for self. Because if you got a big field, you can produce food, you can produce products, goods, services, all these things that can sustain you, your family, and your community, and ultimately the nation. And so big fields await. So if you got a big field, you have the ability to produce, production, make things, reproduce. But he said the wide awake man and woman. So if you are in the big field, but you're not wide awake, you're just sitting there not understanding the value of the big field that you're sitting in. If you're in the field and you're not wide awake, then you don't know what you have at your fingertips and what you've been blessed with. But as we begin to wake up, as we begin to tighten our wobble and focus on our moral character and our moral fiber and submit to living a cleaner, more moral life, both physically, mentally, spiritually, then it's like those fields open up and the opportunity for those fields begin to open up. And we begin to see them for what they are. We begin to get more creative on how we can work out, what we can do. You could even look at that big field as yourself. Have you all thought about that? You can look at that big field as yourself. Like there's so much to you, so much that you can do with what you've been blessed with. You've been blessed with a big field. We just have to wake up. We talked yesterday, waking up to our authentic self and owning and monetizing our authenticity so that our story can be monetized and can be used as a tool to heal and develop somebody else. See, you start telling your story, you start healing people. People start looking at you going, okay, I get that. I see that. Because 9 times out of 10, whatever you're going through, it's not just for you. It's not. 9 times out of 10, you're going to overcome it. You're going to win. You're going to develop. But then what? It's not for you to sit on the trophy and go, oh, I'm so beautiful. Look at me. I've overcome all of this stuff. Mm-mm. It's for us to heal and bless others with our story. That's why I respect other people's stories so much. I'm a big fan of history. They say nobody likes history in school, but not me. I loved history. Most people who love history end up, going into politics and things like that. And that was never my ideal thing to do, but I love history. I loved it since the 3rd or 4th grade, where we were taught world history. And I remember that big, thick world history book. And I was just studying and combing through. And then I used to join these book clubs and just start reading books about history. Most of the books that I read growing up, while a lot of people like reading nonfiction or fiction, most of them were biographies. I was talking to a Black opera singer the other day, and I was telling her how much I had read and researched and done reports on Marian Anderson. History. So what history does for me, it awakens me to the big field that awaits me. Why does it await me? It's because the more we wake up, the more we have access to the field, the more we become more creative about what we can do. When we give up, when we just let go and we say, okay, there's no hope. The wilderness has won. I can't do it no more. Well, then our field just kind of dies with us. He says the wide awake man and woman to work out in. What's it mean when you work out? You work out, you're building stamina. You're building muscle. You're getting yourself prepared to produce, to sustain your life. Sustenance is tied in those big fields and our awakening. That just kept coming to me this morning. And I just kept exploring the different thoughts that were coming to me as a result of that statement, just sort of, flashing, if you will, in my mind. So yeah, I just want you all to think about that. Think about our authenticity. Think about, have hope despite what we see on television. I had something else I was going to talk about today, but the news at the beginning of the year this year has been so gloom and doom. It's like unreal how gloomy it's been, how dark and dismal. And then the temperatures start dropping and it's, cold. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So I wanted to give us some courage this morning. I'm not even going to be long this morning. But I wanted to give us some courage to have hope, have some dreams, to think about what dream you've had in your heart and in your mind your whole life that you just never pursued, or maybe you started pursuing and you didn't get a chance to finish it. I don't know what happened, but let's figure out how we rebuild our lives in 2025. I see 2025 as a year of rebuilding and a year of reward. The wilderness is going to be the wilderness. And we're praying that as a people, individually and collectively, that we get through the wilderness peacefully, and that whatever happens in the wilderness, that we can handle it and that we survive. But at the same time, we have to figure out how to thrive. We can't stay on defense the entire year. So let's rebuild our lives. Let's rebuild our bodies. Let's rebuild our minds. Let's rebuild our hearts. Let's rebuild in 2025. Let's rebuild. We talked about scrubbing at the end of the year last year. We talked about scrubbing our minds and scrubbing our hearts and scrubbing our bodies so that we can do the right thing. Let's do it. It's time. It's time. It's time for us to love again. It's time for us to have hope again. It's time for us to build our will. See, a lot of us have faith, but we don't have the will. We have faith and we say, oh, I have faith in Jesus and this and that and Muhammad and blah, blah, blah. And I have faith, faith, faith. But where's our will? The will to force yourself to change so that you can become who you need to be to have that blessing and goal that you have so much faith about. I see this with so many of us as entrepreneurs. We're doing for self, we start the business, but we just don't have the will to make it happen. We talk all this stuff. I'm a hustler. God don't play about me and all of that, but we don't have the will to move the needle. Let's build our will in 2025. And the way we build our will, the weak will is rooted in fear. See, when you're afraid of what somebody's going to say, you're afraid that somebody's not going to like you. Fear, 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 fear. And then the fear causes all kind of other stuff. That it creates all the jealousy and the envy and the competitiveness and all this stuff that we do that is rooted in fear. If we push through the fear, a lot of people talk about fear and they say, you got to stop being so scary. Well, you know what you got to do? You and I have to do. We have to push through the fear. What are you afraid about? There's an exercise in emotional intelligence. Many of you know I'm a certified emotional intelligence coach and trainer. And there's an exercise that we go through when a person is dealing with fear. And I take myself through this exercise often. And let's say you have a situation and you do two things. You ask yourself, what is the very worst that can happen? You have people out here, they're dating, they might be in a relationship and they're scared and you go, well, what really is the worst that can happen? What's the worst that they can happen? They lie. They may cheat. They may not be who they say they are. But if you are sovereign in who you are, then you can't be love bombed. You can't be tricked because you're not relying on that person for your happiness. See, the reason why we get afraid about moving forward, whether it's in a relationship, a business partnership, or whatever, is because we're worried because we are placing all our eggs in that basket. But when we dial it back and become a little bit more spiritual about it and understand that oftentimes God will send people around us and in our lives to heal something that he wants to heal in us. See, he wants to bless us, but he can't bless us when we're filled up with trauma, when we got all this stuff rotting up inside of us, when we're stinking with the trauma that we've been through. He can't take us around other people because we're going to funk up the room. He can't take us around other people because we're going to infect everybody else. So he may send someone around you, and there's something about that person, something about their energy, something about how they move through the earth that can heal you. It may help to restore faith. I don't know what it is, but this is somebody's word. It may be something that about that person that heals you. It's not for you to go and decide, okay, I'm going to depend on this person. My happiness depends on this person. If they don't turn out to be what I got in my mind, I'm going to die. Oh, come on. We have to move past that. See, the fear, you got to ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, I get out here, I start this business. What's the worst can happen? I lose money. Well, if you understand the source of money, you know that you can get it again. You can make it again. If you have faith, you won't make it again if you don't believe you can. If you believe money don't grow on trees and you can't, it's easy, it's hard to come by and you got to covet it and you got to steal and you got to hold on, then you probably won't be able to make it again. And you probably shouldn't go into business, because if you lose your shirt, you ain't going to be able to make another shirt. But you see, big fields await the wide awake man and woman to work out in. And if I have faith in what I can create, if I believe in myself and I can bet on myself, and I know if I go out to the field, I'm going to produce something that you can't take from me, because my fields are so big and so infinite and so wide and so vast and so lush and so plush and so productive and so fertile and so beautiful. Everything I want is in that big field. Then there's no weapon that's formed against me that's going to prosper. So what is the worst that can happen? If you're a confident, solid person, what's the worst that can happen? But see, what happens is we're weak because we're immoral. Our weakness comes from the way we think. We walk around hurting people. See, when you go into a situation with the intent upon stealing or hurting somebody or getting at them before they get at you, it weakens you. And so that's why a lot of times we can't push through the fear. But what's the worst that can happen? And so we do this exercise in emotional intelligence and we say, let's write down 10 bad things that could happen. And then we're going to write down 10 good things that can happen. You go through those 10 bad things that can happen and you just sit. It takes you about an hour. You just sit with the emotions that come up as you navigate down your list of 10. Some will be more intense. Some will be less intense. And then you go over to your other side of the paper and you go through the 10 good things that can happen. And you walk yourself through the emotion as if those 10 good things have already happened. And so now when certain things pop up in that situation, you've already experienced the emotion or the emotional response of that thing happening. So you're not going to be scared of it happening. When it happens, you go, up, saw that one. See, that's the blessing of being able to see. It's the blessing. I have this saying, I say, you can't fool somebody who can see. See, because when you can see, you understand that everything has a purpose. God is in everything. So you could say, well, I don't want to start this advertising campaign. Well, why not? I was talking to a client the other day, and she was so worried about a person that is her competitor. And she was going through a rough patch because she had lost some employees and there was some different things that had happened in the business. And so I was telling her, let's talk about what we can do. Most of her fear of moving and deploying the solutions was based on the fact that she really was worried about what this competitor was going to say about her. That's all it was. What are they going to say of me? What are they going to think of me? And so we went through this exercise and just walked through it. And at the end of it, she was like, I feel silly. And I said, no, don't feel silly. Feel blessed and healed. Don't feel ashamed. Feel blessed and healed. You know what a blessed life you are in, to have a business that is sustaining you and your family, and to even be in a position to have to navigate these kind of problems is a blessing. And so we talked about that. And then at the end, she said, you know, what is the worst that can happen? I said, exactly. What's the worst that can happen? See, when you are your authentic self, it's, you know where you are. It's like using, a GPS system, right? If you know where you are, you can type that in the GPS system, or the GPS system nowadays may know exactly where you are already, because you have your location turned on, but you type in where you want to go. Back in the day when we were using MapQuest and stuff, you had to type in your location and where you wanted to go. Or when you had, the GPS in the car, you had to do it that way. But nowadays, it's got the locator on it. So it knows where you are precisely. You type in where you want to go and it gives you directions. But if it didn't know where you were and it thought that you were 10 miles away, it's going to give you bad directions. Have anybody ever had that where your phone, or I had my phone's always crazy because, them people listen and all of that stuff. But my phone was thinking that I was in, I think, Georgia somewhere. And it stayed there. I think it probably switched to that when I went to Georgia. But when I got back, it wouldn't switch back. It's like one of my phones just didn't know where it was. And I was trying to put in some directions about how long it may take me to get somewhere so I could know about what time I wanted to leave. And it couldn't do it because it kept thinking I was in Georgia. Well, it's like that in life. You can't get where you're going because you don't know where you are. And to know where you are is to respect and accept your story. So I spent time this New Year's Eve recalibrating my GPS system, understanding and accepting and being grateful for exactly where I am. The good, the bad, the ugly, the triumphs, right here. Sit right here. I didn't revisit any kind of challenges or trauma, but I just said, where are you right now? And I said, and instead of even trying to articulate it, I just put in my spirit, where am I right now? Where am I? No lies told, no lying to yourself, no telling yourself you better. Don't tell yourself the same lies you tell somebody else. Strip it down and be truthful with yourself. Where am I right now? You might say, look, I'm 10 karat crazy. I don't care. Say it right here. But when you know where you are, you can get where you're going. Because now when you start to deploy some of these tools and techniques that we're talking about, you got a set point. You got a set point. I'll give you an example. Some of us are like, man, I need to lose 20 pounds. Okay. And we got our waist cinch in and we wear different things so that you can't tell that we're a little, portly over here, or over there, or in this part or this area, right? And sometimes you just got to take all that off and look at yourself and say, this is where I am. This is how much I weigh. These are the things I be eating that I know I shouldn't be eating. Now, what's the plan? And you put the plan together based on where you are, not a plan based on where somebody else is, not a plan based on the lie you tell everybody else, but the plan that is based on exactly where you are. Big fields await the wide awake man and woman to work out in. But we have to be awake before we can work out in that field. So you got to wake up to who you are. You got to accept who you are. Wake up to it. Wake up to the knowledge of self. Wake up to who you are and where you are. Study history. Wake up. And when you wake up, now you go, okay, I see the field. I see more options. I see what could happen. See, when you're asleep, if you're asleep and somebody flashes a fact to you or tells you something, you can't really figure it out. You might just see one option, and that one option might just be the relief for what you're feeling, which is your sleepiness. You just want to lay down and go back to sleep. See, but when you wake up and I flash something before you or give you some options, you can think, oh, point A, point B, point C, point D. You're going to run through the ABCs. You're going to run through it because you're awake. You're awake. And what's going to wake you up? What's going to wake you up? You got to be courageous to wake up nowadays. And I'm challenging us to rebuild ourselves in 2025 and to wake up and rebuild our will. Get that study guide out, dust it off, build the will. Because it's one thing to have faith. It's another thing to have the will to do what your faith calls you to do. See, if you just have faith and no will, that means you believe in a spook God. You don't really believe that God is real. You can have all the faith in the world. You can talk in tongues. You can use light language. You can scream. You can shout. You can read the Holy Quran 10 times a day. You can do 20,000 prayers in a month. But if you don't have the will, you still believe in a spook God, because what that means is that you don't believe in the reality of God, or you may selectively believe in the reality of God. Like, I believe him for this and this, but I don't really believe him for that and that. Have the courage to believe that God will do and can do what you believe that he can and will do for you. Let's have the courage. Let's rebuild in 2025. Let me know in the chat if you guys have any questions. Happy Friday, Mom. Happy Friday. Grand risings to Kayvon Williams. Grand rising from Memphis. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much. Yeah, big fields await. The wide awake man and woman to work out in. Let's go. Let's go to work. But we got to wake up first. That field is beautiful. It's lush. It's got water. It's got minerals. It's got everything we need to survive. And it starts with us just accepting right here where we are. Acceptance don't mean you got to stay there. So don't be afraid. See, so many of us are so busy lying to ourselves, and we lie so much that we don't really want to accept where we are. But you got to accept where you are in order to get the help. If you need your teeth fixed, you got to just accept it. My teeth are jacked. I got to go get them fixed. But until you accept that, you're not going to get that. Let's stop allowing the trauma to cause us to rot on the inside, because it puts us in a position where it's like you see a person and they're just a carcass, and they're just stinking up every place they go, because of the trauma, and they're just spewing all this negativity and all the vomit all over the place. We got to stop that. We like to say, well, hurt people hurt people. Okay. Have a conscious effort to stop hurting people, because the karmic response is too big of a price to pay. Just because you don't want to deal with your trauma, you're going to throw that trauma on somebody else and hurt someone else. Guess what's going to happen? that energy that you have spewed is literally just going to produce circumstances in your life that's going to cause more trauma, more pain. Nana Kosei Adventures, thank you so much. It's just going to cause more pain. See, nobody can spew anything negative on you. They can't put a spell on you. They can't do all this stuff on you unless you accept it and take it and believe it. But the most part is that many of us need to stop running around out here practicing witchcraft and being sorcerers, because really all you're doing is creating the circumstances in your life for yourself and your family that you're wishing and desiring on other people. Because you can't go there without going there yourself. You ain't that cold. You ain't that. You can't do it. You can't get there without going there first yourself. So whatever you sitting up wishing on somebody else, guess who's going to reap the benefits of what you wishing for them first? You. So it's best to say, you know what? I don't want to hurt nobody. I want to help people. I told somebody yesterday, I said, I want to help 10 people become millionaires this year. I wish I could say 100, but I think 10 is realistic. I want to help 10 people become millionaires this year. I want to bless people. In my studies of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, just his way of being, every time I talk to somebody, they talk about how kind he is and how he just helped them. I was talking to a sister who said he paid for my divorce. I was talking because I was being abused and I didn't even know what I needed to do, but he helped me. I talked to a brother that said I got into a bad loan and he paid off my house. People talking about how he would just walk up to him, and you know how old school people put the money in your hand and then they fold your hand over. He would do that, helping people, feeding people. And then you wonder how he escaped the many death plots and all the people that was against him. How did he overcome coming out of picking cotton and sharecropping in Georgia to become a scientist teaching the world, and to be sitting in a mansion in Hyde Park with world leaders walking down his sidewalk, coming to see? How do you get there? And people just saying, oh my God, I never met somebody who was so focused on changing people's lives. And the niceness wasn't a sappy type of niceness. It was all about, how do I change your life for the better? Well, that energy comes back to you, brothers and sisters. It comes back to you. I don't care what color you are. The laws of the universe work. The laws of the universe don't necessarily care what color you are. So if you're disrespecting my story, then don't you think that you got to reap the benefits from the energy that you produce in me when you disrespect my story? See, when we sit down at the table, regardless of our stories, we should all respect one another's story. I don't agree necessarily with the stance you may have taken as a result of your story, but I respect your story. I respect the history of you. And in respecting the history of you, I'm encouraging the respect of the history of me. Y'all get that? Talk to me. It's all about what you put out. So you can't sit in the quiet of your house and in your room and be negative and be evil and wish bad upon people and be competitive like, oh, I can't stand her. I hope her new car break down. Oh, I can't stand her. I hope she don't get this or that. I hope he cheat on her. Or I hope he do this or that. You can't do that without doing that to yourself first. It starts with you. You pinch yourself off from the big field that awaits you when you're doing that, because now every time you open your mouth or fix your mind to curse someone else, you are cursing yourself. And guess what? Because most of the time you're undisciplined in your thoughts, you're thinking this negative stuff over and over and over again. And so 9 times out of 10, what you wish for somebody else is going to happen to you tenfold. And that's why you're scared. You're scared to move because you've been doing so wrong to somebody else. Don't dog people. Don't mistreat people. Don't do bad things to people. I can't stand these cowards that's going through stuff and then they want to go out and kill everybody else instead of taking their own life. Don't be a coward. Have courage to accept where you are, who you are, and have the will that should be matching your faith that you are going to have and experience the goodness and the love that is promised you and I. See, it's our turn. Respect our story. Our ancestors have been through too much. Don't put that on them. Don't go down in history as being a crazy person like that. Don't do that. And if you see somebody going down that road, say something. Say something to them. Say something to somebody else. Let's clean up. Let's clean it up. Let's rebuild our lives in 2025. Let's rebuild our minds. Let's get stronger. Let's rebuild our hearts. Let's have more love. Let's expand our hearts. Let's expand our capacity to give, to love, to share, and to change the lives of others. Let's expand. Let's rebuild our bodies. Let's start eating right, eating clean. Let's start eating 1 meal a day. Let's start exercising. Let's rebuild. Get your house in order. If you just live in a small little studio apartment, clean it up. Get it organized. Fold your clothes. Put the papers up. Let's rebuild. Let's step out into the world with the energy that we're expecting and we desire from the world. Let me say that better. Let's step out into the world with the energy we desire from the world, and let's start expecting that we're going to get the inheritance that God has promised us. Big fields await the wide awake man and woman to work out in. Thank you all. Thank you for listening to me as I work through that, as things started to come to me this morning. I'm so grateful, so grateful for each and every one of you that take the time out every morning, every time I go live, to listen, to comment, to pay attention. I'm grateful for each and every one of you who go to the Cash App. I think it was one day where I got 10 people who just gave $2. And I am so very grateful for that. You know why? Because it's not about the $2. It's about the energy and the momentum that you gave me as a result of you giving from your heart. And I'm so grateful. It's all about energy and flow. And I pray that I say something or do something to be an example for you and to help you become better. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nana Kose Ventures. Say you are an inspiration. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Really, really do appreciate that. Grand Rising. Happy Friday. All right. Peace and blessings, family. Again, y'all know I say this every week. Don't forget to join the mailing list. Go to sajdahhouse.com. Scroll. After you read everything, scroll to the bottom, say vibrate with us. Click that button, put your information in so that you'll get notices about upcoming things that are coming up. Support us. Let me say this one last thing. I was watching a lecture that the minister did in the year 2000 from Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church here in Chicago. It's a very historic lecture because in 1957, that church was originally was founded by Reverend Dr. Lewis Rawls, who was a neighbor and friend to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And in 1957, when we had outgrown the space on Greenwood where we would hold Savior's Days, he opened the doors of his church, which held somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000. And we had 1957 Savior's Days there and a couple of other events. And I've got some photos of that particular Savior's Day. And so, here they were, 43 years later in the year 2000, with the minister giving this lecture was about get out to vote. They were trying to reelect Carol Moseley Braun and a couple of other people. And, he was talking about how if we want representation, we have to learn to do what is needed to free that person so they can't be dependent or even be bought by someone else. We, of course, have to have the will to not sell our soul. We have to have that will. But we also have to support people in leadership positions so that they can be free, so that they can be of service to us. We kind of have this, we still have this conqueror, slave master mentality when it comes to people in leadership, and that we just think they just supposed to be able to lead and be independent without giving anything. Because for so many hundreds of years, we've seen the slave master just be in charge, and he didn't deserve to be in charge. And we just felt like that's just how it go. You're either in charge or you're not. And it happens by osmosis or magic. But freedom ain't free. And we can't tell our story without an aspect of freedom, because whoever gives us the money is dictating the story. And oftentimes it happens ever so subtly, where they may give you the money up front and then not say anything. And then when they pull the money back, now you start trying to figure out, how do I need to act? What do I need to do? And oftentimes, even when people give you money to tell your story, you'll find yourself and you find people trying to figure out, what they need to do to keep it, or what they got to do to give more. And maybe they shouldn't talk to you or this person or that person, but help those of us who are trying to preserve our history and tell our story to stay independent. And I know you have a lot to do with your money, and you have a lot that you got to work on. We got our Savior's Day gifts and charity and tithing and all these other things. But help us to stay free. You just said something very powerful, Nana Kosei Ventures. Some people are easily influenced every season. I see this a lot in the preservation and in the nonprofit world. It becomes more on display in the nonprofit world. In the for-profit world, it's a little bit different. But in the nonprofit world, what tends to happen is that people may have a mission statement or a vision, and they adjust that vision based upon whatever money is available. So you'll see them. That's the reason why a lot of our projects in the nonprofit world that are supposed to be Black projects or preservation projects, you start to see this scope creep. And the reason why it's creeping is because we had to expand in order to get $1 here or $1 there. And one of the things that I'm striving to do with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is prevent that scope creep. I want to stay right here with the truth and the message. And we need independent support in order to be able to do that. It's just little subtle things. Things happen degree by degree by degree. Sometimes we don't even see it. We had that. Go back and check out that episode on falling. Sometimes we're falling and we don't even know. But the scope creep begins to happen. And this is just true with, any organization. It's why a lot of times when you first find out about a new restaurant and you go there and the ingredients are fresh and, you like it, it's healthy, it doesn't have a lot of preservatives, not a lot of salt, not a lot of sugar. You're like, oh, this is good, healthy, clean food. I love this place. And then you turn around 2-3 years later, let's say you hadn't been there in a while, and you go back and you realize they've gone to all processed food and they've changed because they all of a sudden have creeped. Sorry, that's my phone. They've creeped because of costs or customers or something in their process has caused them to scope creep away from their original message. That's why the number one type of restaurant right now on the stock market is what they call these casual dining, healthy, good food type of restaurants. Top two of those are like Sweet Greens and Kava. And I'm not endorsing either one of them, although I love both of them, because that style where you go down the line and you get to add whatever food you want to your bowl or your salad, that's a top style. Those businesses are doing very well on the stock market right now, those companies that own those businesses. But also the fact that they appear to be offering clean foods. And so a lot of the restaurants that used to be popular that have now, Chipotle is actually is the third of those three chains that I'm talking about. Chipotle is number 3, but Sweet Greens and Kava are the top 2, and then Chipotle is a short third, and then there's a lot of other ones. But when you go to these other restaurants where that used to be okay, and now they're serving this processed food, what they're finding is that their stock is going down. And it's because they may have started out with real pasta or real meat or real chicken or whatever, but they creeped because maybe the cost went up and they didn't want to pass that cost on to the consumer. Maybe they didn't want to be creative to figure out, how do I maintain my mission, or do I change my mission? And that's what a lot of them do. And we do that a lot. People do that a lot. I'm not going to say we on that one. Our people do that a lot when it comes to nonprofit and politicians, because you're chasing the money. And I encourage any and everybody. I do consulting all the time to help you come up with revenue streams for your business, multiple revenue streams, so that in the event that your funding source dries up, or they start trying to tell you what to do later on down the line, or you find yourself, see, a lot of times they may not say anything. These people, they know that the brainwashed have become the brainwashers. So now they got you so brainwashed that all they got to do is look like it's the money going to pull back. And now you start changing. You start adjusting. Ooh, I can't be aligned with this person no more because it might make my money dry up. Let me tell you something. The money is in the authenticity. The money is in the authenticity. There's enough money out here to go around. You just might have to go around that person that somehow is making you feel like you can't be authentic. So you see these organizations going through that. And I'm going to tell you one other thing. And this is just me as a business person forecasting. I've been a business consultant for a very long time, through numerous different administrations. And if I wasn't there during that particular, I really started strongly during the Clinton administration. But I've studied what has happened in the past. So we had Clinton and we had Democrat, Republican, like that. And oftentimes under a certain type of administration, public dollars dry up. Now, under the Clinton administration, it was a little different because you had a lot of our local after school funding and stuff like that just dried up under that Democratic tenure. But oftentimes under a Republican presidency, the push is more towards business. And so, and in the business world, as consultants, we got really busy during the when the Republicans were in office. There was less emphasis on community funding and dollars and preservation, and more on business development. And then there have been some Democratic presidents where it just kind of got neutral. But diversify yourself, diversify your revenue portfolio, diversify yourself so that you're not dependent upon who gets in office. Depending upon your income stream, things can go up or down depending on your different various income streams. And I say that if you look at a city like the city of Chicago or New York versus, say, a Detroit or a Gary, Indiana. Detroit and Gary were very much dependent upon one particular industry. There are other towns like that in Ohio, for example, where it was automotive or certain types of manufacturing. And that was the primary industry in that particular city. And then you have other cities like New York or Chicago that had a number of different primary industries that the city economy depended upon. So when one particular industry fell, you had another industry that kind of shored up and kept the municipality running. That's how you and I need to be. That's how we need to build our organizations. That's what's going to prevent what Nana Kosei Ventures is saying. Some people are easily influenced every season. And you may have well intentions. See, sometimes your intention gets so loud and your heart and the deceptive intelligence is so big, you don't even realize you're doing that. You may not realize it. You may be a Black organization and you're supposed to be down for the community, but because you're worried about your funding, you may say, well, okay, I can't be around no Muslims. I can't be around no Black nationalists. I can't be around this person or that person. And you're constantly looking at people through the lens of whether or not they're going to dry up your funding sources. But this is what happens. When your funding source then dries up and you look over at them and go, well, wait a minute, where'd they get some money from? I thought you had to sell out to get this money. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Stay authentic. Stay true to your story. Your story is your currency. Create a good mission statement for your company and your business, and the story of the individuals you are serving will finance you and it will fuel you. And whoever's on the other side trying to control you and tell you what you need to do in order to get this check from them or this dollar from them, they'll change. They'll come around. It's the case. Study history. Don't get caught up in that little microcosm right there where you're just worried about what's happening right here and now. Just check out them people and their history. And you'll see they probably got a diverse portfolio themselves. They probably got people from all walks of life that they're supporting and giving money to. You don't do yourself a service at all by kowtowing just for $1, when in fact you can get more dollars if you wake up. See, the messenger said, big fields await the wide awake man and woman to work out in. All right, family. Love you all. See you all, inshallah, tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. Central Time for the Sajdah Morning Coffee Talks. Support Cash App Sajdah Enterprises. Join the mailing list and stay close. Oh, I have an event I just posted January 22nd. We're going to be talking about the state of Black entrepreneurs in the healthcare business. We're going to be talking about 340B reform. And we're going to be doing that at Bronzeville Winery, 4 to 6 p.m. There's a QR code on the flyer. I'll make a little video soon, but there's a QR code on the flyer where you can RSVP. Come to Chicago and come to this. We talk a lot about healthcare disparities from a patient perspective, which is very critical and very important. But I think we forget about Black businesses in the healthcare industry and how important they are as well. I don't know if you all realize this, but Black hospitals died decades ago. And studies have shown that people do better when they see a doctor from their culture than not, especially with the history that we've had, the unfortunate history we've had with the healthcare industry. So just because a big box company slaps a black face on it and puts it in front of you, don't get so excited. You got to be looking, you got to talk about what is happening to our independent Black-owned healthcare facilities and what can we do to support them, to protect them, and to help more doctors become owners in the field. We got to clear the field for them though first. So we're going to talk about that on January 22nd, 4 to 6 p.m. At Bronzeville Winery. I'm going to be with Kevin Kimball, Financial Services Innovation Coalition. I chair the healthcare committee for that organization, healthcare advocacy committee for that organization. So we're going to be talking about that there. We have another panelist. I'll announce it later. I'm just waiting for that person to confirm. But if you know any, you don't have to be a Black doctor to attend. It's a free event. We're going to have light hors d'oeuvres that are going to be served. Y'all see, I'll be trying to get y'all this stuff for free. So make sure you support Cash App Sajdah Enterprises, but it's going to be free. We're going to have light hors d'oeuvres that are going to be served. If you want to be a sponsor of the event, then just reach out to me. You can email me, send me a DM, whatever, and just tell me you want to be a sponsor. And we can, you can pass out your flyer, or you can put something in the gift bag or something like that. But if you want to be a sponsor, let me know. But yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. So, and then also stay tuned for what we got going on in February. We're working on that for Black History Month. I'm excited. We outside this year. We outside in the field. Okay. Peace and blessings, family. Love you all very, very much. And I will see you all very soon, inshallah. Peace and blessings.